Today I want to give a little thought to identity, specifically your and my identity. What defines you as a human being? Put another way, who are you and what is it that makes you you? Years ago, when I decided it would be best for everyone, me included, to quit drinking, I was told by people in the know that this would be a great opportunity for me. Instead of just going through life reacting to one crisis after another, I would learn how to live life with purpose, and I would finally be who I really am. Rather than encouraging me, that frightened me, because I had no idea who I was or who I was supposed to be. And so for the first few years of sobriety, I did some frantic soul searching in my efforts to discover who I was. For years, my alcohol and drug addiction had defined me. I was an active alcoholic who lived for the next drink. And if that was removed from my life, then the million-dollar question was, then what's left? Who am I? And the most frightening question of all, what if I'd been using alcohol and drugs all along to cover up who I was, and now I was being forced to come face to face with me in all my unpleasantness? You may not be an alcoholic or drug addict, but as theologian David Lose has said, I think a lot of us aren't all that different. Don't we also tend to define ourselves in terms of our deficiencies and setbacks, our disappointments and failures? Not always, of course, but enough to rob us of the abundant life God hopes that we experience and share. What limitations in your own life have you allowed to define you? Is it your HIV status? That's not an unusual one for people who are HIV positive. That's why our church offers support groups. That's why some of you recently underwrote several women who are participants in those support groups to go to a national conference for HIV positive women. HIV doesn't need to and shouldn't define one's identity. Or maybe your finances define you. Maybe you feel limited because you don't bring in enough income. We are pummeled by a consumer market which promotes products that we feel we need or deserve, but in fact only want. We lose sight of any hope of managing our personal finances and find ourselves managed by our finances instead. Money shouldn't define us. And so our church will be offering a 6-week study that I and the board feel is well worth everyone's investment of about an hour or so after worship on 6 different Sundays and $10 to cover the cost of the book and the lunches. The book is called Enough. It's an easy read, but it's packed with lots of good wisdom for living a life of joy and contentment while still living within our means. I recommend it to everyone here, and if you would like to join us, all you have to do is make a note of it on the comments section of your welcome card and place the card in the offering basket later on when it's passed. I tend to want to pause right now to give you that opportunity to write that on your comment section. Or maybe you are defined by your sexuality. Although our sexuality is a part of our identity, we should see it as a good part of who we are. Unfortunately, many people feel limited by their sexual orientation and sexual identity, and with good reason. They are limited. Society imposes legal constraints on us based on who we love. Women in the workforce still don't receive equal pay to their male counterparts. And transgender people avoid medical care for fear of being rejected, a very valid fear, I might add. Although our sexuality may be a liability, it shouldn't be. It should be an asset, and that's what LGBT Pride is all about. It's about celebrating who we are instead of being constrained by shame, fear, and anger that many of our brothers and sisters feel. Each of us has areas in our lives we may see as limitations in which we allow to define us. It may be our physical appearance or physical ability. It may be our race or ethnicity. It may be our set of skills or level of education. When we feel confined and constrained by any of these things, that's how we define ourselves. We define ourselves by our limitations, and we feel shame and resentment instead of the freedom to be in a good relationship with others, with God, and with our own selves. That's what this morning's story is about. Many people see it as another gospel account of a miraculous healing, a story about Jesus' encounter with a man who was possessed of so many demons that he went by the name of Legion, which was a unit of 3,000 to 6,000 men in the ancient Roman army. And in a moment of high drama, Jesus cast out those demons from the man and destroyed them all by sending them into a herd of pigs that went charging into the sea. But I think the story is not only, perhaps not even primarily, about physical healing, but about restoration of one person's identity. You see, the Greek word that would have been used to describe the healing is the same word that is used for saved, delivered, and made whole. This person who was oppressed by so many demons that he couldn't even count them. This person whose life was out of control and who had lost his identity in the voices of the demons. This person who had ceased being a self, an individual, a human being, and who spent his time separated from his community and even himself. This person's identity as God's own beloved child was restored to him. And as a result of that restoration, he was made whole again. That's what I think this story is really about. And if we see it in that light, then it has much more meaning for my life and yours than it might if we were reading it simply for its face value as a demon exorcism. Read in this new light, it becomes a text of hope, because as I've already pointed out, we've each got our own demons that we have allowed to possess us. We are possessed by demons of fear and shame and resentment and low self-worth. We are possessed by our own demons of greed and pride and envy and gluttony. And whereas the character in our story was bound by chains and shackles, which he was able to break out of sheer strength and willpower, the chains and shackles which bind our lives are not so easily broken. The stigma of HIV, the sins of misogyny and homophobia, the endless oppressive cycle of financial debt, and the prejudice of racism that is embedded into our society are chains that are not so easily thrown off. Our demons are many too, and they are powerful. Their vice-like grip on our lives seems too much at times. We too live our lives among the tombs until we encounter the one identified in our text as the Son of the Most High God. When we meet this Jesus who crossed boundaries of religion, ethnicity, and geography to bring healing, we are given a new name. No longer are we called Legion. No longer do we identify ourselves by our limitations. Through Christ, we are released from our demons of self-hatred and lack of self-worth. We are released from our psychological demons imposed by oppressive theologies, unfair political systems, and dysfunctional families. They are removed forever, leaving room for God's affirming love. We learn to affirm our sacred value and innate dignity. We experience freedom for the first time in our lives. Freedom from the fear of other people's opinions of us. Freedom from the rage that we turn upon ourselves. And freedom from resentment against people who oppose our values. We experience peace for the first time in our lives. A peace that isn't dependent upon others or outside circumstances for its existence. A peace that comes from God and may be found within each of us. And we experience a new identity, a new name, like the old praise chorus that goes something like this. I will change your name. You shall no longer be called wounded, outcast, lonely, or afraid. I will change your name. Your new name shall be confident, joyfulness, overcoming one, faithfulness, friend of God, one who seeks my face. May it be so in your life and in mine. Amen.